You've undoubtedly seen his work over the years on Fox News, but now he has turned to something far more serious, and that's trying to save his state of California. You know Steve Hilton, at least I hope you do, and if you don't, you're going to meet him right now. He's now running as a candidate for governor in the great state of California. Mr. Hilton, it is a real pleasure to have you on the show for the very first time. Welcome in.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.
So I have to ask, we've got a lot to cover. Your background is a fascinating one, from maybe politics overseas to domestic media here to now a candidate for governor here. Why did you decide to jump in? There are a lot of reasons you didn't need to and could have stayed out, but you decided to jump into something very tough. Yeah.
Well, Chris, the first point is I just love California. I'm in love with California. I think it's the greatest place in the world, being ruined by these far left extremists, the Democrats who've been in charge, one party rule now for 15 years. Really, when you look at the control of the state legislature, it's decades that we've been going in one direction, left. And it's been a disaster. We moved here in 2012 with my wife and my two sons. I'm an American in 2021. This is my home. I've raised my family here. I taught at Stanford University, started a business here. You mentioned, had a more recent career in the media. But actually, the thing that really made me want to do this, I suppose, was as the years were going on and I was on TV and elsewhere talking about all the problems that we have in California, I just got increasingly frustrated with just talking about it. And remember that as well as my background in media, you touched on the fact that I worked in the government and politics back in the UK. I was senior advisor to the Prime Minister, to David Cameron, in 10 Downing Street, was part of the team leading the implementation of our domestic policy reform program. But most of my career, I've actually been in business. I've started companies back in England and here in America. So putting all that together, my business background, my government experience, my media platform, I just thought, I feel so appreciative of everything that I've been able to achieve and have from becoming an American and living in California. If I've got the opportunity to do something to solve these terrible problems we have, then it's not just an opportunity. In a way, it's a responsibility. I kind of have to do it because I can't stand to see what they are doing to my beautiful home state.
What does it take to win in the state of California? Because it's an uphill climb. I don't think anybody's made any secret of that to you.
It is an uphill climb, but I would say not steep, as some people might think. The way I put it is that it's going to be very difficult to win, but it is not impossible. Larry's a good friend. I've talked to him a lot about this. I think that the disadvantage that Larry had was he didn't have much time, to be honest. He ran, of course, in a recall election. It came up very suddenly. He had a few months to prepare and get ready. And I just think that he gave it his best shot, did a fantastic job in articulating the changes that we need to make, but it just wasn't enough time. I think that the other point is that we've had more and more years of failure since Larry ran and since others ran. It's now 15 years of one-party rule, as I mentioned. The results speak for themselves. It's just a disaster on every front. We're not just doing poorly compared to the rest of the country. We are the worst. I mean, it really is extreme. How you've got extreme policies leading to extreme and terrible outcomes. We have the highest poverty rate in the country, the highest unemployment in the country, the highest cost for housing, gas, electricity, water, the worst business climate in America, 10 years in a row. I think what we need to do is match that desire for change with a really strong, positive, dynamic Republican alternative. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I've been putting together. I've been working on it for years. I started a policy organization called Golden Together a few years ago. I've been laying out the plans for how we fix these problems. Now I'm in the race as a candidate. Getting a great reception is going to be difficult, but it's not impossible.
You know, Steve, one of the things that's critical, and you understand this, our friend Larry understood this, Gavin Newsom, to his credit, understands this. In 2025 and 26, you have to know how to speak to folks through media. And that is something, this day and age, if you don't know how to do it, you're out. So you already come into the fight knowing well how to navigate media. How critical is that? A guy like Newsom knows, going on podcasts and whatnot, he's trying, I think cynically, but he's trying. So how do you read that scene?
Yeah, I mean, you that's right. You've got to know how to do it in a kind of professional sense, but you also have to have the right message and you have to know what you're talking about. And actually, I think sometimes the way Gavin Newsom, when he goes on these podcasts, he does more harm than good. I mean, because everyone can see the absolute nonsense that he spouts, and just the way he's just delusional about some of the problems of California, the fact that we're the worst run state in America. Of course, he's not going to say that, but the facts show that. And just look at the way he was just on with Sean Ryan the other day. And do you remember that notorious thing that really got so many people so angry, which was the way they went to San Francisco for that summit of world leaders when Xi Jinping, drove into San Francisco. At the time, Gavin Newsom held a press conference a few days afterwards, and he responded to that criticism. And he said, I'm quoting him almost verbatim, well, people are saying we only cleaned up San Francisco because we had a bunch of world leaders coming in here. That's true because it's true. I remember the formulation. It was so weird. That's what he said. Then he goes on Sean Ryan just the other day, and the same question is put to him. And Newsom says, oh, I'm not going to curse like he did throughout that show, but he said BS. Total BS. He's just literally the opposite things. And I don't know whether he knows that he's just saying the opposite of what he said before, whether these things even bother him. I don't know. But look, the fact is, people in California have had enough of all this. The extremism, the fact that it's so impossible to make ends meet if you're a family, to run a business. I'm on the road the whole time talking to people, small business owners, large, but everyone, it's the same story. Life is just such a struggle. The endless, insane, bloated government nanny state regulations, the fees, the permits, the ridiculous rules, the endless interference from all these different agencies and bits of the government coming at you and making your life a misery, the taxes that make everything so expensive, the cost of living. It's all such a nightmare. People are really ready for change. The other point I'd make, when people think, well, how are you ever going to do this in California? Even the baseline we're working from is higher than most people think. You look at the state legislature in California, and that is very, very biased towards the Democrats because of gerrymandering. It's like an 80-20 split, pretty much. And people look at that and think, oh, it's such a Democrat state, no chance ever for a Republican to win. But when you look at statewide elections, it's not 80-20. It's been closer to 60-40. Now, that's a gap that is still large, but it's not so large that you can't overcome it. And I think that we're going to be able to do that next year with a really strong, positive argument for the practical, common sense changes we need to make.
And it's very clear Newsom is trying to tack center, appear centrist, appearing on more conservative podcasts, and to my mind, using conservative platforms and conservative stars to make himself look more moderate. I don't buy it myself, Steve, but if I may just quickly lean on your prowess as a government official, or at least having served in government across the pond, it has been fascinating, and I know you watch it with great fascination, even though no longer there, to see President Trump in Scotland over the last days, sitting down with the Prime Minister. And I wondered if I could play a clip for you and get your reaction to this particular moment with the Prime Minister while he was in Scotland, the President. Take a listen.
Well, free speech is very important. I don't know if you're referring to any place in particular. Perhaps they are, but
we've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud of that.
It was a strange thing, and it makes me think of the COVID era. It makes me think of the Munich speech that J.D. Vance gave, that so many people here domestically said, oh, it was just so rude to the Europeans. But the prospect of free speech in 2025 in much of Europe and the UK, where does it stand in your view?
No, it's totally under assault, and it's an outrage, and it's shameful. Look, I'm a proud American. I'm 100% an American and very proud to be so. So another thing people may not know about me, as well as my background in government and in business, is that my parents are Hungarian. They were refugees from communism in Hungary, and I was born in the UK. But for me, that kind of authoritarianism that clamps down on things you can say is just completely... It's not just, it's visceral for me. It's just something theoretical. It happened to my family. And so the assault on free speech is something I feel very, very personally. And it's absolutely appalling to see it in England. The fact that someone's in jail for expressing an opinion on social media, absolutely unbelievable. And Keir Starmer's just lying when he says that. And remember, he's a Labour Prime Minister. I mean, it's good. I'm pleased to see that President Trump has established a strong working relationship with him so that we can get good outcomes for America, as the president just did in that trade deal with the UK. But Keir Starmer is a left-wing prime minister who's totally failing. He was elected a year ago with a massive majority, by the way, because the Conservatives, who were in power before, failed as well and totally failed to deliver the promise of Brexit. Remember, I left in 2012, moved in 2012, California. I went back to the UK in 2016 to campaign in favor of Brexit. Brexit was passed. What were the main issues? Probably the number one issue that was all about: immigration and controlling the UK's borders. Well, that never happened. What are the other things that Brexit was all about? Reducing regulations and the role of government. None of that happened. So the Conservatives totally failed to deliver the Brexit referendum. That's why they were wiped out pretty much at the last election. Now you had this Labour guy, Keir Starmer, elected with a massive majority, people desperate for change. He's totally failed to deliver. He's really unpopular. Now Nigel Farage is top of the polls in the UK. So when Trump goes there, he's actually showing the British people this is what real common sense, pragmatic, problem-solving leadership looks like, which is what we're seeing here in America. And they haven't had any of that in the UK for years.
And I must say, that's your model, and it's so important. I asked you that question because I know you see it. It's the canary in the coal mine in Europe. It's very much the kind of thing Gavin Newsom embraces, and it's what Steve Hilton opposes. So where can people stay in touch with you, watch your campaign, and be helpful if they want? We have a lot of audience in California, of course.
Well, thank you very much. We got to build a real grassroots movement here, because we got the Democrat industrial complex, as I call it. They're funded up as much money as they want from the government unions, and so we got to fight back. So SteveHilton4Governor.com. Please sign up to get involved. We got a volunteer call just this evening, so there's still time to sign up for that. SteveHilton4Governor.com, and you can follow me on social media at SteveHiltonX. And lots of putting out videos all the time of my journey on the road in California. It's fun. We're going to do this.
We're going to be watching, and you're welcome back anytime to share your adventures while you're out there, my friend. Thank you so much for your time today.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.